The night before, Marlene's body had not felt like her own. She had endured cruelty that stripped her of voice, strength, and hope. Rough hands had held her down, harsh voices had drowned out her pleas, and blows had forced her into silence. Her wrists burned from the ropes that kept her bound, her cheek throbbed from the slap meant to quiet her, and fear lived in every corner of her mind. She was trapped inside a world where pain was constant, and mercy had no place. But even the darkest prisons make mistakes. That night, when drunken arguments inside the brothel turned into a full brawl, chairs breaking, bottles smashing, men shouting, the back door had been left unbarred. The chaos inside became her one chance to escape. And Marlene seized it. Barefoot, half-clothed, trembling from exhaustion, she ran. She clutched a torn white cloth around her bruised body and held tight to the small leather ledger she had stolen from the madam's desk. Inside it were names, debts, and secrets powerful men would kill to protect. The night stretched mercilessly across the land. Every sound made her jump. Every stretch of shadow made her heart pound like a drum inside her chest. Her breaths came sharp and painful, but she kept running as if the earth itself chased her. Hours passed before the black sky softened into gray. When pale gold finally touched the horizon, her body was already failing. The desert sun rose swiftly, beating down on skin marked by bruises and burns. Her throat ached with thirst. Her legs shook beneath her, threatening to collapse at any moment. Her vision blurred until the world looked smeared and distant. She had no map, no direction, only a desperate will to avoid being dragged back into that brothel. And then she saw it. A ranch house standing alone at the edge of the plains. Wooden fences stretched out around it, a single horse grazing in the pasture, and smoke curling from a chimney as if someone inside had already begun their morning. To her, that ranch looked like a fortress, a haven, a promise of something kinder than everything she had ever known. She stumbled toward it. Her pace faltered across the dry grass. She dropped to her knees once, then again. The ledger nearly slipped from her hands, but she clutched it back against her chest as if losing it would cost her soul. With a final burst of strength she didn't know she still had, she reached the porch. Her hand struck weakly against the door, and then she collapsed. Inside, Eli Garner heard the faint knock. Eli was a man of 50, broad-shouldered from decades of ranch work, his face lined by wind, dust, and old sorrow. A widower who had buried laughter long ago. When he opened the door, he found Marlene on the porch, broken, trembling, gasping for air. Bruises stained her skin like cruel marks of ownership. Her lips parted. Her voice was no stronger than a breeze. "Don't judge me, please." Eli crouched beside her. He lifted part of the torn cloth to see the injuries beneath, but what he saw was not shame. It was survival carved into flesh. He draped his heavy coat over her shoulders and lifted her gently, offering water to her cracked lips. "You're safe here," he said, his voice steady and low. Tears spilled freely down her face. Her hands clung to his sleeve as though it were the only solid thing in the world. "Please, don't let them take me back." Eli looked out over the open land. He knew men would follow her, men who believed she was property, men who would spill blood to protect their secrets. The choice before him was clear and heavy: shelter her and risk a war with Virgil Sloane, the brothel master, or close his door and condemn her to a fate he could not bear to imagine. He carried her inside instead. He set her in a chair by the kitchen table and handed her a cup of water. She said nothing for a long time. Her eyes kept flicking toward the windows, toward the door, jumping at every sound. Eli moved about the kitchen like a man who had learned patience the hard way. He stirred a pot of stew simmering on the stove, letting the smell of beef and onion fill the room with warmth. When he set the bowl in front of her, her hands shook so badly she nearly spilled it. "Eat," he said quietly. She stared at the bowl as if she had never heard the word before. Then she lifted a spoon. The first bite made her inhale sharply. The second brought tears. By the third, she could not hold them back at all. He didn't ask why. He understood. After a time, her voice returned, thin, cracked, uncertain. They will come for me. Eli sat across from her, leaning forward. Not while you're under my roof. The simplicity of his words stunned her. She looked at him as if he had promised something impossible. Later, while helping him mend a saddle, Marlene flinched violently when the rope slipped through her fingers. Eli stopped immediately. No one gets hurt by rope on this ranch, he said gently. For animals only. Not people. For the first time, she almost smiled. As the sun lowered in the sky, Marlene reached beneath her cloth and pulled out the small leather ledger. She placed it on the table between them with trembling fingers. They kept this hidden, she whispered. Names. Dates. Who paid what? Who paid the sheriff to look the other way? It's all here. Eli opened the book slowly. The words written inside carried the weight of corruption that ran deep in their county. Men with power. Men with influence. Men who thought they could buy anything, including silence. His jaw tightened. He tore several blank sheets from his own ledger and copied the most important names and numbers. If the book were lost, these pages would survive. Marlene's voice dropped to a whisper. If they find out I took it, they won't drag me back. They'll bury me where no one finds me. Eli closed the book. I believe you. Night settled outside. A crow called from the fence line. Marlene finally began to breathe a bit easier. But Eli's mind was hard at work. Virgil Sloane would not send a single man next time. He would come himself, with guns and threats. So Eli placed the ledger in a drawer and looked at her. If they ride out here, we won't face them alone. What do you mean? She asked. There's still one law in this county I trust, Eli said. Sheriff Oda Collins. If trouble comes, I'll send the signal. Trouble came sooner than expected. Late afternoon, dust rose on the road. Virgil Sloane approached on horseback, alone but smirking like a man convinced he owned everything he touched. His voice carried across the fence. I hear you're keeping something that belongs to me. Eli stepped forward. What you're looking for isn't here. Virgil spotted Marlene in the window and snarled. There she is. My runaway. She signed a debt note. She's property till it's paid. He pulled out a crumpled paper, smudged ink, broken seal. Nothing more than a bluff. No one is property here, Eli said. Virgil's grin rotted into a sneer. He lunged for Marlene. Eli caught his wrist and threw a heavy punch into his chest. Marlene, fueled by terror and courage, snapped a rope across Virgil's arm, making him drop his knife. Eli kicked the blade away. Ride, Eli said. Next time you step on my land, you won't walk off. Virgil spat in the dirt. You just bought yourself a war. And he did. That night, Virgil returned with 3 armed men. But Eli lit a lantern and raised it toward the old water tower. A flash answered. The sheriff had seen the signal. Within minutes, Sheriff Oda Collins and her deputies rode in hard. She stepped forward like a storm wrapped in a long coat. You picked the wrong ranch tonight, Sloane. Virgil's men reached for their weapons, but Oda and her deputies were faster. A struggle erupted. Eli blocked a blow. A deputy wrestled a rifle away. Virgil grabbed Marlene's arm, but she struck his wrist again, making him drop his pistol. Eli pinned him to the ground. Sheriff Oda clamped cold iron cuffs around his wrists. You're done, Sloane, she said. Assault, abduction, extortion. And tomorrow, the judge sees the book. The men were dragged toward town, cursing into the dust. Silence settled over the ranch once more. Marlene trembled on the porch, breath shaking. Eli stood beside her, hat in hand. She looked at him, and for the first time in years, felt the earth steady beneath her feet. At dawn, she washed the torn white cloth in the trough until the water ran clear. Then she hung it on the fence. "I don't need this anymore." Eli watched quietly. "Stay here if you want. This place can be home." Marlene turned, sunlight catching her eyes. She took his hand, softly, willingly. Gratitude lived there. Trust. Maybe even the beginnings of something like love. Scars don't end a life. Sometimes they start a new one.